1 year after his death, military officers, associate and media professionals converged on Abuja to remember former Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru. The late Army Chief, who died in an aircraft crash alongside 10 other military officers, is believed to have had the proverbial magic wand to end insurgency in Nigeria. TVC News Defense correspondent Sifon Isien has the story.
A gathering of military officers, friends and family of the former Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Ibrahim Attahiru, 1 year after his death. Also present are media professionals, traditional rulers, and Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka. General Attahiru was Chief of Army Staff for only 114 days, that is, between January the 26th and May the 21st, 2021. He died alongside 10 other military personnel in an aircraft accident in Kaduna.
And we say, amen. Please let's be seated.
The event in Abuja provides a platform to highlight what he stood for and his contributions to advancing the Nigerian army and the security of the country.
The late COAS was a noble soul, a great soldier, and a patriotic Nigerian who lived his life in total dedication to the service of country and humanity.
It also emerged that apart from leading the army in the various roles he played, General Attahiru also gave back to the society through humanitarian services he rendered.
General Attahiru loved to give back and believed in seeking knowledge. Whilst we served in Calabar and Enugu as brigade commander and GOC, he would make me design numerous programs for youth, women, widows, and orphans in the barrack community, some of which continue to be implemented by his successors.
Behind the hard-looking face is a soft person who cares and who is very, 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 who has the country at heart.
Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka notes the sacrifices soldiers play in safeguarding the territorial integrity of the country and observes that their heroic deeds must never be forgotten.
One's empathy with the fighting man thus goes beyond even the self-exposure to the ultimate sacrifice on the battlefront. Even when we're powerless to ameliorate their condition, as the third supposed leg of this uneven, precariously balanced tripod, we identify with their frustrations, their sacrifices, and honor their memory.
He also condemns the killing of Deborah Samo for alleged blasphemy in Sokoto. But without detracting from the achievements of the fallen army chief, several persons, including a media professional, took turns to read tributes to General Attahiru, which is part of a biography launched at the event.
Nothing has pained me in recent times as much as losing General Ibrahim Attahiru, and I wept like a baby when I heard the news of his passage. I called Brigadier General Yerima and told him to confirm his death to me. And for all he was saying, I was just crying. And he was begging me. He said, Jide, it's okay, it's okay. He's done his bit. That is why Allah took him to be with him.
The author of the biography explains why he undertook the task.
It was indeed a true Nigerian hero whose life inspired, a lot of people. And I find it a privilege to have been invited to document his life in such a way that everyone who reads should find some inspiration about Nigeria.
A foundation set up in honor of General Attahiru will be keeping his dreams alive. At the end of the day, many here say General Attahiru may no longer be alive, but his legacies are indelible. Sifon Isien, TVC News, Abuja.
All right, let's look at this particular issue where I will be speaking with Dr. Oladipo and Adekunle Yusuf. Thank you very kindly, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Right, we actually are waiting BKO to join us via Zoom from Abuja. Well, let me start with you, Oladipo, Dr. The late chief of army staff, was a man that we thought that would help us to fight insecurity to a standstill, but we lost him when we lost him. What do you make of his loss?
Well, for me, he did well and left at a time when Nigerians had hope, very strong one at that the battle against Boko Haram and the ISWAP was going to be won very quickly. Whatever happened during that time, one thing that we'll always remember the late general for is his courage. He showed that he is a man who could match words with action. He's a man who doesn't sit back in the office. He leads his troops. Within the 1 year he was in office, his activities were well documented on the battlefront. And that is a strong signal to those who are on the seat now that no matter the order that you give, no matter how much of orders you back out, the most potent weapon is showing how it is done. Yeah. When he came, he reminded me of late General Victor Malu when Nigerian troops were in Liberia, subsequently Sierra Leone. Malu showed something, and that was leading the troops himself. He was there himself at the forefront when the Nigerian troop got Charles Taylor, right in his bunkers. And that, for me, is the hallmark of leadership in the military. Someone who is willing to show that I don't only give orders, I can also shoot. Mm-hmm. I can also lead. I'm fearless. And that, for me, was what marked out his tenure.
Well, Adekunle Yusuf, 1 year after the crash of the Nigerian Air Force known as Beechcraft B-300 King Air 350I, carrying the late general, there has not been real investigation into it. There was actually a preliminary reason, given for the crash, but then we really do not have the information as to what led to the crash. What does this say about the investigation, accident investigation?
It's a military affair. They will not be able to say that investigation they may decide not to make for them. And going back to the late general, and I think about 10 other gallant officers, who died alongside him. He came at a time Nigerians were thoroughly, dissatisfied with the services of those handling the security sector in Nigeria. Yeah. Nigerians were openly calling that sack these service chiefs and all that. And when the president eventually, listened to Nigerians and brought in, it was formerly of, I think, with the Operation Lafayette Adoli, and people knew the exploits made. So, when he came on board, Nigerians had a new sense of optimism that, but unfortunately, I think he spent less than a year, 4 months or 5 months. Now, you see the way people described him. Thorough professional. Attahiru, immediate predecessor in office, who is now an ambassador, said Nigeria was on the verge of winning the war against with him in charge and all blah blah blah. You see, it is normal when we do things like this because when we lose some of our best and remember them as our heroes. So when we remember people like Attahiru, and other officers who died, say something about who we are, and if we choose to forget their services, it also says something about who we are. And I'm happy that at least for our sake, we are remembering services, memories of these gallant officers. Because when they died, it was a bad time for Nigeria. Thank God that some people have come up now. What documented.
Yeah, before we change tack, let me come back to you. It's been said about him that it was believed that he had the proverbial magic to fight the insurgency that's ravaging, not only the north but the country as a whole now. Did you also have the same feeling because of the fact that he didn't have enough time to spend in order to prosecute this war against insurgency?
Yes, I think that feeling is real. And like I said earlier, there is no way you are going to take it away from him. For the short period he was there, the chief, he showed that if you read his reports, you will always hear he's in this place, he has spent 4 nights here, he has done this. And that, for me, matters a lot. It matters a lot. And that's why, like the last question you asked, I felt the Accident Investigation Bureau should have taken a more rapid, it should have taken more rapid steps of working with the military to know what actually happened to that aircraft. Because a lot of us are curious. Because when you look at it, in the military, you have some of the best pilots we have in Nigeria, well trained, flying even in very dangerous and bad weathers. I've flown on a couple of them, and I know that these guys, some of them even go to some of the war colleges in the US to lecture, even the Americans, on how they are handling what we consider outdated fighter planes here, and they are doing quite well. So what happened should be of interest to all Nigerians to this flight. We must know, and we should know quickly, because this is 1 year after. It's sad that for every accident that happens, it takes about 3-4 years. It's getting better now. Under the present DG, at least the helicopter that crashed in Okwebi here in Lagos, we've had a solution to it. We now know it was fuel that got finished in the chopper. So, but this should be of concern to Nigerians. We lost a man in whom we have even invested heavily in terms of training. In fact, what he has taken away with him is huge. So we should know what happened to him.
All right, Adekunle Yusuf, he also said that it's very important that we know what actually happened, but then it's very also important for those who are the top echelon of the military, those in the authority, because they say what goes around comes around. If the investigation is done, although AIB said they've got the information, but then it's left for the military to release the information. But at least, just like I said, what goes around comes around. We have to ensure that this never happens again.
I think I would rather prefer the public to know what really happened. Let me be honest. Because you remember a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding the crash that led to the death of General Attahiru and other officers. I think because of that alone, a lot of speculations need to be put to rest.
We've got BKO now because we need to change tack. BKO, thank you so much for joining us. Yesterday on Issues with Jide, you extolled the personality, the professionalism of the late Attahiru, Ibrahim Attahiru, late General Ibrahim Attahiru. You said he was a good friend, he was a professional. Talk to us about the person of late Ibrahim Attahiru, very briefly.
for his death. And normally I try to give Army generals some distance, but I saw his determination, I saw his commitment, and I saw a man honest in his approach to defeating terrorism in our country. So I naturally took to him, but death snatched him and prevented him from completing the task of defeating terror in our country. But you all recall that even the idea of Boko Haram fighters surrendering in droves began during his time because of the intensity of the war, as well as the efforts made in terms of intelligence gathering through the officer who headed the intelligence unit. That's General Kulia, who also died along with him in that ill-fated aircraft of the Nigerian Air Force. So I am particularly pained that it didn't complete the task, but God knows best. And I know also that we will have picked up valuable lessons so that this kind of crash does not happen again. You recall that a smaller aircraft was used to convey those officers because the Air Force was using its main passenger aircraft to carry some retired Air Force service chiefs who were taking part in the Air Force week in Makurdi, celebration of the Air Force week in Makurdi. So if we had a bigger aircraft to convey them at that time, the unusually fast speed of the wind, which swept that small aircraft off the runway, certainly that bigger aircraft will have stood up to the wind.
Right.
That is the feeling, that is what preliminary investigation showed, that the speed of the wind was the main cause of the crash, because usually when an aircraft touches ground, it bounces off the surface of the runway. So once that small aircraft designed to carry, I think about no more than 14 persons, once it bounced off the runway, the speed of the wind swept it off, and the aircraft was already fully loaded with aviation fuel. So it tumbled and then caught fire.
Right.
So in future, at least to carry such caliber of servicemen, such high caliber servicemen, we would need to use the Nigerian Air Force Falcon, which is a bigger aircraft designed for transporting people. You know, it will certainly, in the opinion of Air Force officers and generals that I spoke with, it certainly will have withstood the speed of that wind, which caused the crash. But remember, we always learn from this kind of things, and I'm certain that our armed forces will have picked up valuable lessons.